Hello, world. All right. I'm back with another live stream. And tonight I am sharing the results of our protein bar tasting. But before, I want to start with a story. Okay. So, for those of you just joining us for the first time, my name is James Keddington. I am the owner of Better Me Nation. We are an integrative health, nutrition, and human performance coaching company. And this is the Overcome and Become podcast. And the point of this is to help people confidently overcome the hard stuff in life so they can ambitiously focus on becoming their best selves. And in today's episode of the podcast, I am revealing the results of a protein bar taste testing that I did yesterday with 7 other people. Now, let me share with you a story that leads into this. A few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, I was at the store and I eat a protein bar about once a day. And sometimes when you're used to the same bar over and over again, you want something new, you want some variety, and you need to change things up. And that's how I was feeling that day. I was at the store and I'm like, you know what? I want to try something new. And I go to the protein bar aisle. I don't think that's what they call it. I think they call it something else. But anyway, where all the protein bars are. And I see like rows and rows and shelves and boxes, tons of boxes of all these bars proclaiming to be awesome and tasting great. And now I know that not all of them are going to be good for me. And I know that it's protein bars, so they're not all going to taste great either. But how do I find the one that I'm going to enjoy, right? Like the reason we stick to 1 or 2 bars is because we know that we like it and we know how it makes us feel. So when you venture into something new, it's really hard to do sometimes. And I thought, if I'm somewhat knowledgeable about food and ingredients and nutrition, and I'm having a hard time figuring out what bar I want to change things up with, I bet a lot of people are having the same thing. So I put on the Facebook and LinkedIn, like, hey, who wants to taste these? Well, first I put out like, what are your favorite bars? And the list I got from people was as many as there are on the shelves at the store. And so I thought, okay, we just got to buy every single bar and taste them. And I put out some feelers, who wants to help me out with this? And I got a great group of people all raising their hands, some personal trainers, runners, everyday Joes who have nothing to do with the industry, all raise their hand. And so yesterday, 8 of us, we sat down together and we tasted 30 different bars. And I'm telling you, that was a lot of food. It was a lot. But we learned a lot. And so today, I'm not only going to reveal to you our favorite bars and how they tasted, but I'm going to take you into a little bit of schooling on what goes into these protein bars, what to look for, what's important, and what to avoid, right? So I'm not going to tell you every bar that we tasted. I'm going to tell you some of the bars that were like the hits, like the ones that like everybody loved, some that nobody liked at all, right? We were generous and we gave those 1s instead of 0s. But and then I'm going to share with you some of the things to look for in a bar. So we're going to kind of change this up a little bit, right? I'm going to jump into some bars that I would avoid, okay? And so some bars that I would avoid, I've got my spreadsheet here that I'm looking at, okay? So some of the bars that I would avoid that are popular, okay? These are some that, and some of these I've eaten in the past, right? So I'm just going to kind of jump to some of these, right? I would stay away from the Robert Irving's bar, right? The Robert Irving bar is great if you're looking for a candy bar substitute that's not bad for you, right? And that's essentially what the Robert Irving bar is. It tastes exactly like a candy bar. The good thing about the Robert Irving bar is it uses alcohol sugars instead of straight sugar to make it sweet. So you don't have nearly as many calories. And they do pack a lot of supplemental nutrients into it as well. So you don't have a lot of calorie input on there. It's still sweet. But the alcohol sugars over time is scored really bad also because of those, because those can wreak havoc on your intestines, on your digestion system, as well as your liver over time. So if you've got like GI issues or leaky gut, you definitely do not want something like this at all, right? It's gonna be really hard on you. But the other reason this bar got some bad remarks from me, as well as some of the other bars that got them were the True Bar, the Zone Perfect, Power Crunch, the Orgain, and even the Pure Protein bar. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack on the Pure Protein one, but I'm not a fan of that one. Here's why things got negative remarks, right? So now we're going to kind of talk about some of the things that go into bars and what I'm looking for and what should be important to all of us. Before I do that, I want to recognize that we're all different. And when I evaluated all the ingredients and everything that went into this, I did it through a lens of that we're all unique and individual, and that we all respond to different ingredients differently, right? So some people, we have to be gluten-free because we just have bad reactions to gluten. But not everybody, right? Not everybody is allergic to milk products, right? So kind of through that lens that like, hey, just because it's bad for one group doesn't make it bad for every group, right? And just because it's good for one group doesn't make it good for every group either, right? So I kind of went at with that lens, right? But across the board, there are some things that doesn't matter who we are, these things are important to us. And that's what I want to cover in this, right? That's where I judged on the ingredients list and the nutrition value. Green, like this is good. Like this is good stuff. We want to seek this stuff out. The red, I was like, we need to avoid this stuff. Everybody should be avoiding this stuff. And yellow, it depends on you, right? Maybe you'll react good to it. Maybe you'll react bad to it. It kind of depends on you, right? The good news is most protein bars fell into that yellow area, right? We had a lot more good tasting bars that were yellow than we did good tasting bars that were red, right? So that's awesome, right? So that means there's not as much crap out there as you might think, right? Amongst the bars that we tested, right? But there's definitely some ones that stood out. Okay. So what are some of the things? Obviously, protein is something that you want in a protein bar. Some of the bars we tasted, like the Lara bar and the Luna bar, tasted great, very nutritious, but very, very low on the protein. And I wouldn't even consider them protein bars. They're really good snacks, right? They're the kind of things you might want to put into your kids' lunch, or something for them to eat at recess or when they get home, or for you to have a midday snack, right? But they're not really protein bars, right? So the first thing we want to look at is, what's the protein really look like? And so why is protein good for us? And I just realized I got to do something here. So we wanted to take a look at like, why do we want the protein, right? So protein is really important for synthesizing muscle development. And as we age, our muscle, we lose muscle. So we need to proactively be focused on, are we nurturing the development of our muscle? And if you're young and you want to bulk up, then definitely proteins are really important for you. But protein serves as a lot of other things as well, right? So protein actually is a mechanism for blood flow as well as your like veins and arteries and stuff. And so your muscles contain a lot of blood. So there's like, so you have mitochondria in your blood that come to your muscles. And so your muscles serve as almost a transport as well for something. So muscle is not just like strength and power and being strong, but it's also being able to function at a very important level as well. So we need that protein to be healthy, not just to be strong. So it doesn't matter if you're working out or not, you need to make sure to get your protein in. So if protein bars is a way to do that for you, you need to make sure you've got good protein counts in there, and also quality protein. Now, I'm going to lead with saying this. Of all the people we talked to yesterday and all the nutritionists I've ever talked to, the best way to get protein in is from a real source. Like, have some chicken breast, Have some eggs, eat some turkey, even red meat if that's your thing, right? I love seafood. Shrimp is scallops are very high protein for the calorie count that you're getting, right? So if you're just looking for protein, I actually recommend going away from the bars and going to going right to the source, the natural source, and that's the lean meat, preferably your fish, your seafood, your pork, your chicken, your turkey, right, poultry, and then red meat, right? That in that order. Hey, so there's a caveat. So we're looking at the protein level. Another thing that a really, really important thing that I'm looking at in any food, but especially these protein bars, is how they make them sweet, right? Is it sugar? Is it natural sugar, a sweetener, a natural sweetener? Those are like the four areas of making something sweet. And the reason we have to be careful with these in protein bars is because protein by nature doesn't taste very good, right? When you bring it to that powder form and you formulate it into a drink or into a bar or something else, it doesn't taste very good. It's notoriously for being chalky and clunky and clumpy, and so they need to sweeten it up. And that's why the Robert Irving bar will use sugar alcohols, which by the way is neither sugar nor alcohol, but funny thing. But it's still sweetener at a very, like half the calorie is sugar. So they know they need to do that to make it very appealing and for people to want to eat it over and over and over again, right? So I'm looking at sweeteners. What is it sweetened with? So the best thing that you can sweeten it with is a natural sweetener, right? So some natural sweeteners out there are stevia or monk fruit, right? Those are great options for natural sweeteners. You can use other sweeteners too, like honey is a really great source. Cane sugar is a good natural. Well, that's a natural sugar, I think. I could be wrong on that one, but I'm not a nutritionist. So you're kind of getting somebody who's not a nutritionist, but very well versed in the industry, right? So, but those natural sugars are really good as well. But it's the added sugars that we're trying to avoid. So when I see a label and I see somewhere there's 17 sugars and 17 of them are added, I like my red flags go up. And if it's not from a natural sweetener, then I'm like, I don't want this. And the reason I don't want that is because those added sugars, whether it be sweeteners or actual sugars themselves, it's going to make our blood sugar levels go up and down all day long. And that's really, really bad, not only for our energy, but for our liver. And our liver is like, it's like the filter, but it also makes sure that we stay healthy. And the liver is kind of like a bad liver equals pre-diabetic, right? And so we need to really make sure we take care of our liver. And the worst way to take care of our liver is not paying attention to the sugars we put in our body. That's why sodas are really bad. The average person takes in about 52 pounds of sugar a year. Oh, that's mind-boggling, right? A pound a week. Can you imagine having a pound, that bag of sugar every week for every person in your house? That's what we're doing. We need to avoid that, right? So when I'm looking at these bars, I'm looking at those, what's making the sweet. The good news is for a lot of these bars, they're natural sweeteners or no sweeteners at all, right? Okay, the next big thing that I'm looking for, believe it or not, is actually the fiber count. Fiber is so important. I feel like fiber is like the middle child in the nutrition world where we all know it's there, but we all kind of forget about it. Now, we know the effects of way too much fiber, right? You're going to be doing a lot of too much business time in the bathroom, right? But with the right amount of fiber, we need the fiber because fiber is essential for digesting food. Now, digesting food is not the same as I eat it, it comes in this way and goes out the other way. Digestion is the complete cycle of taking in food, breaking it down, right? Absorbing the good stuff and excreting the bad stuff, right? And so if you don't have enough fiber in your body, you're not going to do that very well. So you can be taking in all the best stuff in the world, right? All the organic fruits and vegetables, no sugar added, only like the best quality ingredients. But if you have zero fiber, you're not getting nearly as much as you could. So if you make sure you have great fiber with that, right, then you're going to get all your good nutrients. And likewise, if you have a lot of great fiber but a really crappy diet, you're going to pull out your good stuff, right? I'm not saying eat McDonald's and lots of fiber. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that you need to make sure you have fiber. So in a lot of these bars, you'll see that there's like 36 carbs and 2 grams of fiber. Well, that's a really, really imbalanced proportion, right? So you want a good fiber count on these. And so that's actually the next thing I look for. So I'm looking at, like, in a protein bar, does it have good protein, right? Because some of these bars don't, even though they proclaim to be protein bars. There's one bar called a protein puck, very little protein. Odd, right? And the protein puck, I know I'm kind of going backwards here, but the protein puck, even though it had a little amount of protein, it's actually a great meal replacement. Like, it's loaded with so much good stuff, but I wouldn't call it a protein bar or protein supplement just because of the low numbers. But it's a really good bar. A lot of when people tasted it, they didn't like it. I liked it a lot. And other people who are used to eating more raw foods liked it too. So I think it's more of a palate issue of what you're accustomed to. Anyways, so protein first when evaluating the protein bar, of course, right? Then I'm looking at sugars, and then I'm looking at fiber. The next thing I'm looking at is how are they preserving this, right? Like, what are they doing to have a good shelf life? Because the reality is these bars go through a manufacturing process. And so how processed is this food, and what are they doing to preserve it, right? So now there's 2 bars out there. I know there's more than 2, but of the ones we tasted, one's the perfect bar and one's the G2G bar. They're both cold bars, and they're cold for a reason, because the cold environment preserves it longer. And both of those bars ranked at the top of taste as well as nutrition value. Just throwing that out there, right? So what's being put into to preserve this, right? Now, there's a lot of things that we add to our foods to make them last longer. And this is where a lot of the bars got negatives. And this is where I'm going to invite you to reach out to me, because I'm not going to go into deep dive on how these things are preserved right now. I'm going to do that in another podcast, but I'm also going to put out a report later this week or next week on these elements. And if you want to get that from me, go ahead and email me. I'm going to put my email in the description, or if you're in our private Facebook group, the Better Me Nation Facebook group, you can just request it in the group and I'll send it out to you, okay? If you're not on that group and you want to be part of it, go to Facebook and look for Better Me Nation and join the group. It's a free group and we post stuff there all the time. It's great information. So, but you want to look at how these things are maintaining a good shelf life. And unfortunately, a lot of them used very harmful things. And this is where a lot of the bars got negative scores, where when you're looking at a bar and you say, wow, it's got so much great stuff in it, why do they get a negative remark? And it's because of how they're preserving it and how they're processing the food, right? One bar I looked at, I was like, what is this, right? And it came to find out, like, it was invented, like the preserving ingredient, like it was invented to be like an agriculture product to kill weeds and stuff like that, right? So it's like, it's meant to kill organic material, right? But yet we're putting this in our body, right? I don't know if you remember, like a while back ago, like Skittles was under fire for some of the coloring and preservatives that they were using because they were toxic. And Skittles, or whatever company that owns Skittles, are saying, no, the FDA said it's healthy for you and it's okay. And it's true if you're only having one bag of Skittles and not that ingredient in anything else the rest of your week or month. But the problem is all the food companies realized, hey, that's a great way to preserve our food and color it. So not everybody's putting it in. So now when you combine it all together, it's very toxic. And so the problem isn't that these ingredients in this bar and this amount is bad for you. The problem is it's in all of our foods, right? And so we want to now just avoid them altogether because it's the cumulative factor that's making it bad. And I have the personal belief this is one of the reasons why our mental health is on the decline and our physical health is on the decline, because we're putting so much bad stuff in without countering it with an exceeding greater amount of good stuff, that we're not getting rid of it. We're not flushing it, and our bodies just are not functioning the way they need to. And so whereas like 15, 20, 30 years ago, these things in the amounts we were receiving them weren't harming us to the level they are today, right? So we want to take a look at that, right? That's really, really important for us to avoid that. Now, here's the key, and I'm not the only one to say this. If you cannot pronounce it, or if it's more than 10 syllables, it's bad for you, okay? I'm just going to say that. If it's more than really 5 syllables or 4 syllables, it's probably bad for you, okay? And if it's really long and you don't know what it is, it doesn't sound normal, right? Like whey protein, that sounds normal, but I can't even pronounce some of these things, right? If you can't pronounce it and you can't remember it, it's probably bad for you, okay? So you want to avoid those things. The next thing that I'm looking for is additives. What are they adding to this? Like, are they adding coloring to it? The good news is most of the additives in these bars fall into the preservative line. There's really not a lot of, I didn't see any bad coloring in any of these, which I think is amazing, right? So much of our candy and other foods that we have like yellow dyes and red dyes that are proven to have like very chemical, biological, mental health detriment to us, right? But not so much in these. So that's great news, right? So the additives wasn't really big. It showed up in a couple of areas. So I really wouldn't worry so much about that, because a lot of the people were also adding in great stuff. So like Honey Stinger, ranked top at taste, top in the health, they added in a ton of seeds and grains and whatnot to the, so a lot of these additives too, right? So those are the big things that I'm looking for in a bar, right? So calorie count is there, but not a big deal, because there's only like 2 bars that were kind of way out there that are more real meal replacements. Everything else is within range. So anyways, when you're looking at bars, right, if you're going to look at the back, you want to know, like, does this have a good amount of protein if you're looking for a protein supplement? You want to look at, are the added sugars, like, is it bad, right? Is it excessive amounts, right? And so when you're looking at added sugars, I'm going to be honest, anything above 4 grams is pretty excessive in terms of added sugar, right? There's a lot of natural stuff that's going to come naturally in there, and they sneak a lot of that in by way of honey and molasses and things like that. But because honey is a good like bonding agent too, so they kind of sneak some in that way, and that's where you get like a lot of your high sugar count but very low added, right? But even still, like if they're using honey, at least that's a natural source and it's not like manufactured sweetener, right? So we're looking at protein, we're looking at our sugars, because we want a very stable blood sugar level throughout the day. And then I'm looking at fiber, and then how are they processing this and preserving it, right? So let's talk about the bars that ranked at the top now. Okay, I'm going to pull up my sheet here, and I'm going to tell you, these are the bars that ranked at the top, okay? And then I'm going to share with you, by the way, of all the bars that tasted the best, one of them is a red, meaning avoid it. The rest are all yellows, meaning the rest of the ingredients are, it's up to you. You kind of got to figure it out. And that's okay, because we've narrowed the list down to just a few, not a few, but like, I think 7. So from these 7 bars, that's easy to test how your body is going to respond to these. So the number 1 bar, the highest score, actually it was a tie for the highest score. So we ranked them on a scale of 1 to 5, and both of these bars got a 4.6. The Honey Stinger and the G2G bar. All right. So the G2G is a refrigerated bar. I get mine at Costco. I get my Honey Stingers at the grocery store. I don't buy those a lot. I find those can be sometimes too sweet, a little bit too much. But I know other people have them a lot. So it's kind of a preferential thing. The the honey stinger is kind of like almost reminds me of like a nougat bar, almost like a payday, right? Like if you think of a payday candy bar, kind of reminds me of that. Whereas the honey stinger is probably more of like a cookie dough type of bar, right? So both really, really good. And both of them on the nutrition ingredients are good. There's nothing out there in either one of them saying avoid them, right? The third one is the Robert Irving one. And that's the one on this list that I think people should avoid. Unless you just want something that's not as bad as a candy bar, right? Maybe you're going to the movies and you want something that's not bad, but you want to have that sweet tooth, feeling that craving. Robert Irving's fine for that, right? I just wouldn't have a lot of it, mainly because of the preservatives and the blood or the alcohol sugars in it. Okay, the next is Bear Bells, right? So Bear Bells got a 4. Then the Think Bar got a 3.6. Quest, Luna Bar, Perfect Bar all got 3.5. And the Luna was another one of those bars where it's really not a protein bar. It's more like a snack, like a healthy snack, right? So our top bars are Honey Stinger, G2G, Bear Bells, Think, Quest, and Perfect Bar. And Perfect Bar is another one of those refrigerated bars. Now in the yellow areas where some people really liked them, some people didn't care. I was like, I would eat it, but I'm not going to maybe buy it all the time. Maybe every now and then, or someone gives it to me, I'll eat it, no problem, right? Only one of those was what I would call the green on the nutrition, meaning like this stuff is all good. You don't have to worry about a thing. And that's the all real bar, right? And so I actually recommend that one. I'm going to start buying that one and adding that into my mix. Even though it didn't rank high, I believe that the better quality ingredients, I can down a bar, no problem, not think about it and not care so much. All right, so those are the top bars. If you want the full list, message me, email me, and we will take care of all of this for you. I'll get you a list of that. I'll send you the final report on it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you got questions for me, let me know. Follow the podcast, the Overcome and Become podcast. Subscribe, share your friends, join our Facebook group, the Better Me Nation Facebook group, and then stay tuned for future episodes where we do deep dive into the ingredients. Thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you next time.